enough. You will need to rule the land.
You don't change, do you? You think far too highly of me.
Sooner or later, my lord, I will make you see the truth, no matter what it takes.
And now I'm supposed to rule this land? I wish I could just...
The talent you possess will be put to the ultimate test soon enough.
Whenever my brother needs me, I'll be there. Promise me you'll stay with me.
Chaos shall end. I must conquer the world.
Brother!
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Night Owl channel. Welcome back to the series where we count down the top Dynasty Warriors characters after the latest game. Coming in at number 25, we have Sima Zhao. Sima Zhao is Sima Yi and Shang Chunhua's second son, Sima Shi's younger brother, and Wang Yuanji's husband. Using the foundations laid by his predecessors and his ingenuity for talent, he extended the Sima family influence to gain the people's favor by quelling several civil rebellions. When he was in power, Wu's armies failed to penetrate his formations and Shu surrendered. His high esteem in the imperial court helped his son Sima Yan later establish the Jin dynasty. However, there are some records that state he may have maintained his power and good image through well-planned propaganda, as his more questionable behind-the-scenes actions have been brought to light. Before we jump into how Sima Zhao has changed since his playable debut back in Dynasty Warriors 7 with the introduction of the Jin Kingdom, let's take a look at the popularity poll to see why Sima Zhao is all the way up here at number 25. In the first popularity poll, Sima Zhao receives 1,320 votes out of a total of about 75,000 total votes, putting him at the 20th position. In the second popularity poll, he's going to unfortunately drop down to the 41st spot. And then in my personal ranking, he's going to jump back up to the 23rd position. So for me personally, Sima Zhao is right in the middle of all three lists, and that's because I genuinely like Sima Zhao. He's a very likable character. Sima Zhao is a naturally charismatic person. There's no real surprise to me when he becomes the leader of his kingdom, eventually leading to the downfall of Shu and of the eventual unification of China. At least within the game, Sima Zhao has a very interesting character arc, starting out as someone who regards the conflicts in the land as pointless or bothersome, and then eventually becoming the stern, intelligent leader that he needs to be in order to unite the kingdom under Jin. I've always liked Sima Zhao. He's always been an interesting character for me, and I've always liked to see how he goes about becoming the person that the entire kingdom needs to rely on in order to bring China under unification under his banner. Sima Zhao is a very interesting character because not only does he have the ability and the intellect to become a very well-sustained leader, but he also has the compassion and benevolence to balance it out and shows compassion when he needs to. I believe Sima Zhao, because of this factor, a lot of people underestimate him and actually see it as a sign of weakness.
That is quite the stroke of luck for our cause. Master Sima Zhao is nothing like his father or brother. I have a feeling the end is near for the Sima clan.
But because of this, I believe that's why Sima Zhao is able to retain the people that are with him and able to bring peace a lot quicker than some of his predecessors. Before we jump into how Sima Zhao has changed within the series, let's talk a little bit more about Sima Zhao for people who don't know. Like I said, Sima Zhao was a Chinese military general, politician, and regent of the state of Shaowei during the Three Kingdoms period of China. He capably maintained control of Wei, which had been seized by his father, Sima Yi, and previously maintained by his older brother, Sima Shi, successfully crushing all internal opposition in the form of dissent and rebellion. In 263, despite opposition, he decided to take advantage of the present weakness in Shu Han to the west and launched an invasion against it, which eventually managed to convince its emperor Liu Shan towards formally surrendering, tipping the decades-long established balance of power decisively in Wei's favor. Sima Zhao is considered the indispensable character for ending the Three Kingdoms period. His design was made to be loose, friendly, and open to contrast his brother's reserved image. His character arc during Jin's story mode is what makes him the lead character in a sense. However, like I said, early in Sima Zhao's story, he would always refer to things as pointless or bothersome because his reliability on his family members that were in power, he didn't really feel like he had a reason to actually worry about politics or government rulings. Because of who his father and older brother was, Sima Zhao never really felt the pressure of becoming really anything for the Jin Kingdom because he had two people of immense power and intellect that he never really had to worry about it. He was always in favor of taking the easy way out.
Boring is easy. Sounds good to me.
Because he had his older brother and father, it built into that early personality of not really wanting to try hard at all.
You don't look particularly concerned about the reports that Shu has launched an attack against us.
With you and Father around, there's not much left for me to worry about.
When he personally experiences the hardship of losing his family to war, Sima Zhao is then forced to seriously consider his future. Though being entrusted with the right to lead initially paralyzed him, he eventually gains the confidence to think for himself. He did have intellect which matched his father and brother, which definitely helped him in ruling the land, but like I said before, I think the casual attitude and attire, along with the benevolence and charisma that Sima Zhao had, really made him a well-rounded leader and character within the games. And I think that's why he did so well in the first poll, because he's a very likable character. He has that main character energy and people just want to see him succeed. He does the best that he can in any situation that he's put in spite of this newfound decisiveness that Sima Zhao receives after becoming the leader of the Jin Kingdom, he tries to retain his gregarious optimism in his hope for a better future. Like I said, it's a really good balance for the character, but because he doesn't stay on that side of just trying to be lazy, finding the easiest way possible. He takes his responsibility, he realizes that he is now in a position of power and needs to be responsible with that power, but in a way that keeps his people safe and pushes him towards a point of peace. And I think that's why he has kind of an understanding and almost relationship with Liu Shan, the last emperor of Shu, because he could see that within Liu Shan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into his relationship section. But Sima Zhao, for me, is one of the most balanced characters within the game and one of the most balanced leaders in the game. I really enjoy seeing how he tries to deal with things in the best way possible for Kingdom and for the people that he's leading. As much as he likes to play the fool and, being not as smart as his brother and father, because of the balance that he has with his charisma and benevolence, and then of course being a stern and decisive leader, I think that ultimately what leads him to almost conquering China under his banner. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into how Sima Zhao has changed within the series, and we're going to go ahead and start off with his appearance. So Sima Zhao's appearance within most of the games is pretty much it's excellent. I have nothing to complain about. I think it fits him really, really well. It really shows that casual, relaxed kind of tone that Sima Zhao is known for, and it carries through with him as a character. I actually like the way he looks, and I can't really complain at all about the way Sima Zhao looks. Now moving on to his weapon style, it's a pretty basic weapon style. He just has the sword, he has a Dao. He's a leader of a kingdom. Most of the leaders have swords. There's nothing too fancy about that. And because of the affiliation that he has as being common protagonist, he gets affiliated with a common weapon, which is the sword. His weapon style within most of the games is pretty interesting. I like that they transcended his moveset from the first game all the way up into Dynasty Warriors 9. The little move where he jumps on him and starts surfing with a person is really cool. It's really awesome seeing that. And it's just a really fun play style. He has a lot of fun with his weapon style, and I genuinely enjoyed using his weapon style. A lot of characters have swords, but Sima Zhao's is a little bit more, you can feel that loose, friendly, relaxed tone that he has even when he's fighting. His Musou attacks within the games is pretty good. I can't complain too much about the way his Musou attacks are. They're very good for Sima Zhao. I think it actually got better in the latest game. I thought the effects were a little bit cooler in the latest games, but I can't complain too much about the Musou attacks. Can't complain too much about the weapon style. It fits him really well as a character and really hammers in that free-flowing kind of personality that Sima Zhao is known for. And it just fits him really, really well. Now, moving on to his voice acting, again, I can't complain about the voice acting. I think the voice acting for Sima Zhao in the first two games, and then, of course, in Dynasty Warriors 9, is really good. Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8, I think, maybe was a little bit better.
I will ask you one more time. Will you not surrender the throne, Your Highness?
But in Dynasty Warriors 9, he sounds just fine as well.
Ah, I see. Now I understand why you've been so frenzied in your pursuit.
For pretty much all the games, at least for the Jin stories, you're gonna spend a lot of time getting to know Sima Zhao. It's kind of hard not to like this character. Everything that makes up this character is really good. There's nothing really negative about the character that I don't think people can complain about, except for his beginning, character emotion. The way he's kind of lazy and doesn't really want any responsibility and just wants to kind of push off things is probably the only real negative thing about him. Yes, he's indecisive, and yes, it's hard for him to come to terms with being thrusted into power so quickly. But I think because of the inherent intellect and the personality that Sima Zhao has, I think he fit in pretty well as the leader of the Jin Kingdom. Now moving on to his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. We're going to talk about significant battles and I guess a little bit of relationships at the same time because a lot of it intermingles together. So the most significant battles for Sima Zhao is going to be the Battle of Dongjing, the coup d'etat, the 3 rebellions he had to deal with, so the Guanzhou Jian and Wenqin Rebellion, Zhuge Dan's Rebellion, and of course the Emperor's Rebellion, Cao Mao. And then the last significant battle is going to, of course, be the Battle of Chengdu when Shu surrenders and the balance of power within the Three Kingdoms period gets heavily shifted over to the Wei Kingdom at that time. So starting off with the Battle of Dongjing. The Battle of Dongjing is a semi-important battle for Sima Zhao because it's one of the first battles that Sima Shi has the ability to establish himself as a leader of their kingdom and ends up failing. And then, of course, as we talked about in Sima Shi's video, his ability to bounce back from that and Sima Zhao being there for him, showing that brotherly bond and being there for him when, you know, even Sima Shi was failing, he was there supporting him as best as he could as a brother. Next up, the battle or the rebellion of Guanzhou Jian and Wenqin was extremely important for Sima Zhao because not the battle itself, like there's no like accolades within that battle that Sima Zhao personally had, but this is the battle that caused Sima Shi's sickness or his injury to worsen that led to his death. So this was the battle. After this battle happened, Sima Zhao lost his brother, and this was the point where Sima Zhao had to take over and become the leader of his kingdom. Now moving on to Zhuge Dan's rebellion, and we'll just talk about his relationship with Zhuge Dan as well because it really won't make any sense if I don't. We'll talk about the rest of his relationships in a little bit, but his relationship with Zhuge Dan was pretty close, of course, all the way up until Zhuge Dan's rebellion. And within the games, you can see Sima Zhao very visibly upset that Zhuge Dan decided to go this route. Like it was almost like a regretful kind of thing after he beat him. Like he didn't even want to really execute him. He knew he had to, but he didn't want to. He wanted to, you know, hear Zhuge Dan's reasoning for why he did it. Zhuge Dan told him it was because of the emperor, which kind of leads right into the next rebellion. But Zhuge Dan's rebellion was very significant for Sima Zhao because he's understanding that at this point that he's the leader of this kingdom, trying to bring peace to the land, trying to find the best way possible to do it. And there's so much objection to it. There's because of the long establishing rulers of Wei, you know, the Cao family, the Shahu family, those loyal retainers are upset at the fact that the Sima clan has gained so much power that they are now running the kingdom of Wei. So all these rebellions are happening and Sima Zhao has to figure out how to deal with them in the best way possible to propel his kingdom forward. The Zhuge Dan rebellion was more of a reflection of Zhuge Dan's relationship with Sima Shi. He blames Sima Zhao for the death of his brother. He ends up rebelling mostly because of that and because he deems Sima Zhao as an unworthy ruler to the kingdom of Wei. So Zhuge Dan rebels. He teams up with another person who rebelled earlier, Wenqin, and he ends up killing Wenqin because they have a disagreement during the rebellion. Zhuge Dan's rebellion falls apart. Sima Zhao easily takes him down, and of course before he ends up executing him, or like in Dynasty Warriors 8, Jia Shang ends up killing him. He has a conversation with him to understand why somebody who was so adamant and so loyal to Wei decided to rebel. Now, right after that rebellion, we have the Emperor's Rebellion because Zhuge Dan told him that he received a message from the Emperor to rebel against Sima Zhao. Once Sima Zhao finds out this information, he now has to make a decision to fight his Emperor of his kingdom. So unfortunately, Sima Zhao had to put down the rebellion by the Emperor, but regardless, Sima Zhao was still in a weird position because he was being forced to do things he really did not want to do, but because he was a leader and because he was fulfilling the dreams of not only himself but of his father and brother that laid the foundations for him to be in the current position that he's in, he had to see through the things that were happening around him and act accordingly. So after dealing with all these rebellions, he had Zhang Hui and Deng Ai in the west maintaining the order and actually getting the upper hand on the kingdom of Shu during that time. So this led to Zhang Hui actually asking permission for going to war and finally destroying Shu once and for all. So Sima Zhao put Zhang Hui and Deng Ai in charge of the invasion forces, and they set out in autumn of 263. So they headed directly for the Shu capital of Chengdu, and surprised by Deng Ai's quick advances and believing that Zheng Wei would be unable to return fast enough to defend the capital against him, the Shu Emperor Liu Shan surrendered to Wei. This is an extremely important battle because this is the battle that ends the Shu kingdom after their long reign, and of course ending the Three Kingdoms period. Now, moving on to his relationships and his death. We already talked about Zhuge Dan, but his most significant relationship in the game is going to be with his family. So Sima Shi, Sima Yi, Zhang Chunhua, and then of course his wife Wang Yuanji. And then he has a really close relationship with his like right-hand man Jia Shang. And then I would say he has minor relationships with Wen Yang, Deng Ai, Xiahou Ba, and Zhang Hui. And then he also has a, I guess, semi-minor relationship with Liu Shan. So starting off with the relationship with his family, Sima Zhao is extremely close to his family all the way up until, Sima Yi's death, and then of course Sima Shi's death. They had a very close relationship from the beginning of their coup d'etat, from the beginning of Sima Zhao and Sima Shi's very first battle with their father. They were there from the beginning of the Jin Dynasty story. You pretty much see the development of their family and the dynamics of their family all the way through the story of Jin. I would say out of his family, he's probably the closest with his brother Sima Shi, and he was very close with his father Sima Yi. Sima Yi was very proud of Sima Zhao and was proud of what he would eventually become and everything like that, but very close with Sima Shi because they had the inherent bond of brothers. He was there for Sima Shi when he needed him, and of course Sima Shi was there for him. And Sima Zhao actually blames a little bit of himself, at least within the games, blames himself a little bit for the death of Sima Shi, and they had a very close relationship all the way up until their death. As much as Sima Zhao liked to complain about being lazy and doing things the easy way, he was always there regardless of those feelings. He was always there for his family, for his father and brother. Whatever they needed, he was there on the battlefield, protecting, attacking, whatever they needed, he was there. He definitely had a very close bond with them. But even though Sima Shi or even Sima Yi or even his mom Shang Chunhua would scold him for his skittish laziness or his immaturity, Sima Zhao actually appreciates the concern for them, and that's how he's able to easily be there for them when they need help, because he cherishes that his family cares for him, and of course in return he cares very much about his family. Now moving on to his relationship with Wang Yuanji, he's going to obviously have a very close relationship with Wang Yuanji because that's his wife, and again they're going to be very close because after Sima Yi and Sima Shi passes away, Wang Yuanji is pretty much his main support throughout his decisions, his leadership with the Jin Kingdom, and then the decisions that he's got to make, and even through his indecisiveness and moments of immaturity when even Wang Yuanji is chastising him, she's still there to support him regardless of the situation that Sima Zhao's in or a decision he has to make. She's there to try to keep him on the right path and constantly push him towards becoming the best leader that he can for his kingdom. They had a very good relationship throughout the entirety of the story, and they had very good moments with each other of just her being there for him, and of course him being there for her, and of course being appreciative that she is there with him even through times of mistakes that he's made or feeling he's not good enough or he's just not as good as his brother and father. She's there to reinforce and comfort him when he needs it. Now moving on to Jia Shang, a very interesting relationship with Jia Shang, extremely close relationship, but still very interesting. Jia Shang, he's the polar opposite of Sima Zhao. He's a very quiet but discerning kind of character. He's definitely got a very maniacal vibe about him, but he still has a sense of honor and loyalty only to Sima Zhao. I believe he also has a respect for Sima Shi and of course Sima Yi and everything like that. But those two pass away, Jia Shang becomes his right hand man, ends up doing all the dirty work for Sima Zhao. When Sima Zhao's uncomfortable with doing the things that he has to do as a leader, Jia Shang is there to clean those things up for him. And it's very interesting to see that relationship because you wouldn't think someone like Sima Zhao, who's so relaxed and immature and just kind of finding a way to get out of things, has someone like Jia Shang that he has implicit trust with. It's a very interesting relationship to see, and Jia Shang seems to not mind being that kind of person for Sima Zhao. I believe that Jia Shang sees in Sima Zhao this ability to become the true kindred, decisive leader that I believe Jia Shang, sees in Sima Zhao. He definitely sees something within him if he's willing to stick by him. Jia Shang understands what it takes to be a ruler, and he sees that within Sima Zhao. He's a very straight person, and he's very direct with Sima Zhao, very honest with him, very you need to do these things because this is what a ruler is supposed to do. But with that honesty, Sima Zhao is able to trust Jia Shang implicitly, which is so crazy because Jia Shang looks like the character that would be part of these rebellions. He looks like the character that would be in these rebellions and rebel against Sima Zhao. Now moving on to his more minor relationships with Zhang Hui, Xiahou Ba, Deng Ai, and Wang Yang. So I think within those four, the closest one he's going to have a relationship with is probably Xiahou Ba. And the only reason I say that is because Sima Zhao actually used to discuss personal matters with him. So they had a pretty close relationship all the way up until Xiahou Ba leaving. And that's why within the hypothetical stage, Sima Zhao, he was very benevolent with Xiahou. He was very understanding, and he wanted to make him know that he was going to be okay. Like, he didn't have to worry about being killed just because of what happened with, Xiahou Shuan and Cao Shuang. Like, he was totally fine, and Sima Zhao wanted to make him aware of that. Even though I think at that point in time, the Zhuge Dan thing happened, and, other rebellions took place where he ended up killing the people who rebelled. And Zhao Ba ended up being a traitor, and Sima Zhao still ended up, taking him back or whatever. Of course, in the historical routes, that doesn't happen, but, he's still, I believe, a little disheartened when Xiahou Ba leaves because, he was a close friend with his. He was close friends with Xiahou Ba. And then with the other three, Wen Yang's relationship comes a little later. Deng Ai and Zhang Hui, I believe their relationship with Sima Zhao was very similar because Deng Ai and Zhang Hui were always stationed together. I believe Sima Zhao's relationship to them was more of trust to get things done. They were mostly sent to the western side of China to deal with Shu, and they had that trust from Sima Zhao to contain them. And of course, when Zhang Hui comes to ask for permission to attack Chengdu and end Shu, it's very easy for Sima Zhao to approve this request because of the trust that these two have built all the way up until that point. Very capable officers underneath him. And then a very minor relationship with Wen Yang after the rebellion of Wen Qin, and Wen Yang sees how corrupt his father is, and of course after he passes away and everything, at least within the games, Wen Yang decides to join Sima Zhao and has that implicit respect for him. He is very grateful that Sima Zhao ends up taking him and I believe Wen Yang's brother in after the rebellion and everything that happened. So he has a very small relationship there with Wen Yang, and it's really cool to see that Sima Zhao, of course, being the leader of the Jin Kingdom, he's going to have a ton of relationships within the game. It's really cool to see that. He has that charismatic personality, that very outgoing, friendly, calm, casual attitude that's able to transcend to most of the officers in the kingdom.
And then finally, his last relationship with Liu Shan, I would say it was less of a relationship and more of an understanding when he finally meets the Shu Emperor at the end of the game and sees that Liu Shan was in a similar position of power to that of Sima Zhao, somebody who didn't really want the power, who didn't really want to be thrusted into the responsibility of being a leader of the kingdom. You can see the understanding that he has for Liu Shan and not wanting to kill him, but bring him into the kingdom, and they kind of form a little bit of a friendship towards the end of all of the games that both of these characters are playable. Sima Zhao was very understanding of why Liu Shan surrendered almost immediately when they invaded Chengdu, because Liu Shan didn't even want to be in that position, and when he had an opportunity to put down his weapons and stop fighting and causing suffering to his people, he took that opportunity. And although history will look upon it as, shameful and cowardice, Sima Zhao actually respected his decision for it, and that's why they were able to actually form a little bit of a friendship towards the end of the game. And then finally, his death, it's not mentioned in any of the games because it cuts off before his death actually transpires. It's about a year or so after the Battle of Chengdu. Sima Zhao passes away, I believe, from old age, and that's pretty much it. But he's alive all the way up to the end of the series because they stop right at the Battle of Chengdu. It's pretty much all I have for Sima Zhao, at least within the game himself. I like the character. I think he was a few spaces lower than Sima Shi. I think in my next list he might be higher. I actually like Sima Zhao. He was actually quite fun to play as, and I enjoyed his story in Dynasty Warriors 9 and the decisions he was making and how he made those decisions and the things that he went through as a character. The scene, that arc within the game was very interesting. It was of the changes that he goes from emotionally from when he first had his first battle all the way up until the very last battle at Chengdu. Even though things had changed a lot between those 2 points, Sima Zhao still maintained that benevolence. He didn't become, heartless like his brother Sima Shi at times, and he wasn't as ruthless as Sima Yi. He still maintained that balance of having moments of being stern and serious and moments where he had to actually do things he didn't like to do, but he also had that understanding, benevolent side of him where he can, talk to his prisoners or talk to the people he captured and offer them a safe place to surrender to. They don't have to worry about being executed. They don't have to worry about being treated badly. They were treated like equals under his rule. But yeah, Sima Zhao was a cool character. I enjoyed him. Just a really cool character to see what happens with him. He's not, there's nothing really about the character where it's oh, that was kind of lame or boring or, very negative. It's very he's a very optimistic person. He's a very, energetic, happy person. And of course, in those moments when he's looking down upon himself, he has, Wang Yuanji, he has Jia Shang, he has these people around him to bring him back up, and he's able to radiate that energy within his army, within his kingdom,
and then of course within all the people that are close to him. But that's all I have for Sima Zhao here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think about Sima Zhao down below, and if I missed anything, or if you guys use him, if you guys like him. Yeah, but if you guys enjoyed it, definitely appreciate a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.